This is the end of my sabbatical series, but in some ways, it's the beginning. You see, when we understand who we are as God's beloved, it becomes the foundation of all that we are and the beginning of all that we do. The God of the universe, the one who flung the stars into existence, a being infinitely beyond our understanding, delights in us. He loves us. I will admit that it is hard for our broken, hurt, abandoned selves to understand this, to really grasp this. In this world, we often trade accomplishment for recognition, and productivity for love, and effectiveness for prestige, all while the deepest longings of our heart go unsatisfied. Yet God is ready and willing to satisfy our need for love and belonging. And here's something really interesting. It really isn't about us at all. It's about God, about who He is and His own character and the fact that He loves us. He longs for us and that He delights in us. God's big picture plan is to create an eternal community of love between Himself and us, and between His creatures and His creation, an eternal, continual community of love. So He created humanity with special love receptors. We were designed from the very beginning to be loved. Every human failing comes back to a corruption of love or a lack of love. And that is what God has been working on redeeming from the very beginning. He wants to unclog our love receptors that we've tried to fill with all of these different worthless things. And instead, He wants to fill us with love from Himself. God knows that the only way that we will live lives of purpose and integrity and love is by first being filled with love from Him. This love transforms us into people who reflect Himself and people who are heading for an eternity of love, a community of love. It all starts by believing an unbelievable truth, that the God of the universe loves you. Put another way, the ultimate King, whose very essence is love, looks at you and is filled with delight. The God who is holy and completely untainted by evil or sin, He takes joy in you. God who sustains the universe and life itself wants to spend time with you personally. Much of who we believe God is and who we believe we are rests on our understanding of this truth. God loves me personally. This is what God spent much of my sabbatical time reminding me of. He did this in many and various ways, but He was persistent and consistent. My hope is that today you will be reminded of His outrageous love for you as well. I hope that you are encouraged in your devotion to Him. It is His love that undoes our unworthiness, despair, and our feelings of being unqualified. It is His joy in us that prompted Him to rescue us from our entrapment to sin, and it's His delight in us that draws us into intimacy with Him. Though there were many ways that God reminded me of His love during my sabbatical, I'm going to share just a few of them with you today. I love this poem that I was given at the silent retreat that I attended. It's called Known by Reverend Charles K. Robinson. I know you. I created you. I am creating you. I have loved you from your mother's womb. You have fled, as you know, from my love, but I love you nevertheless and not the less. However far you flee, it is I who sustain your very power of fleeing. I will never finally let you go. I accept you as you are. You are forgiven. I know all of your sufferings. I have always known them. Please know that when you suffer, I am suffering. You are beautiful. You are beautiful more deeply within than you can see. You are beautiful because of yourself, the unique way that only you are. You reflect something of the beauty of my holiness in a way that shall never end. You are beautiful also because I and I alone see the beauty you shall become. Through the transforming power of my love, you shall become perfectly beautiful. You shall become perfectly beautiful in a uniquely irreplaceable way, which neither you nor I will work out alone, for we shall work it out together. There are so many things that are powerful about this poem to me. I love this idea that I am both fully known and fully loved. And this idea that God sustains everything, specifically that He sustains me, even when I am running away or not following Him closely. I love the fact that I am accepted today, now, just as I am. And this idea that I am beautiful and that I am individually loved and that I'm individually valuable to Him. I love this idea that I am called or invited into partnership with Him. And I just think that this is incredible. So this was one of those anchor points in my sabbatical where He just revealed His love to me in a really specific and powerful way. One of the reflection questions that I was asked was this: in what ways do I tend to control my life and treat it as my possession rather than embrace it freely as God's gift to me? So here was my response. I think that it's my responsibility to steer my life towards God, my job to pursue God, and that my relationship with God depends on me. While I certainly have a role to play, I really think now that it is better to view my relationship with God as me responding to God's pursuit of me instead of it being my responsibility. A quote that really stood out to me was this: God is loving. God loves me personally, completely, and unconditionally. God is rooting for us, not testing us. At the end of my silent retreat, I reflected, God reminded me that He delights in me, that He loves to spend time with me, that He loves me personally, and that His greatest expectation of me is to receive His love. Another way that God reminded me of His love was that upon my return from vacation, but before my sabbatical was over, a visitor at our church gave me a note. And it said, "Pastor Aimee, I believe God gave me a message for you. If God were a human, He would have tears of joy streaming down His face every time He looks at you. He loves you so much." 1 John 4:16. It was just another incredible and personal reminder that God cares for me. Perhaps my most intimate experience with God on my sabbatical occurred during just a regular prayer time. I had prayed, "Jesus, I give you all of me. I want to live loved by you." And God gave me this picture. And I was standing before Jesus, telling Him that He could have all of me. And it was like my whole self filled up with light from the inside out. And then Jesus comes and He swoops in and grabs me with a big smile on His face and starts dancing with me, this like wild, joyful dance. And I started to sort of pull back and I objected and I pointed out that there was so much about me that wasn't right yet. And He just goes on and keeps dancing. And then he looks at me and says, "You are beautiful. You will become beautiful too, but it is your love for me that I am drawn to." And so I decide just to dance. And I realize that my best life is not one lived following Jesus or even being transformed by Jesus, but my best life is one lived being loved by Jesus. God, through this picture, just reminded me that it isn't what I do or how complete or perfect I am that makes him love me. And even though I'm a work in progress, God delights in me now. So, all through my sabbatical, God worked really hard to remind me, to convince me that He loves me, that I am worthy, that He delights in me, and that He takes joy in my company. So, I pray that as we have journeyed together through these reflections, that you too are reminded that God loves you personally and that He takes great joy in you. As we end our time together in this particular venue, I want to leave you with a thought from Henry Nouwen. He writes, "Every time you listen with great attentiveness to the voice that calls you beloved, you will discover within yourself a desire to hear that voice longer and more deeply. It is like a well in the desert. Once you've touched wet ground, you want to dig deeper." Let's be a people that listen attentively and dig deeper.